yet to reveal his deadliest servant, the one who will lead Mordor's armies in war. The one they say no living man can kill. The Witch-king of Angmar. You've met him before. He stabbed Frodo on Weathertop.
Okay, welcome to my first time-lapse video. This one I'll be building the Lord of the Rings Winged Nazgûl. As you can see here, I'm clipping the parts off the sprues with some plastic clippers, leaving about 2 to 3 millimeters of the gate left. Then I'm using my hobby knife to take away the gates and the mould lines. So we've got a nice smooth finish. It's always better if you leave a little bit of the sprue attached to the model, so that if you clip it too close, you end up dinting the plastic. Then I'm going in with some 400 wet and dry paper. You can get this from most like hardware stores or automotive stores to clean up the last of the seam lines. Now I'm assembling the Witch-king of Angmar with his flamey sword. It was a bit of a tricky fit because it was like a smooth joint, and it was a bit of a pain in the arse to get it to stay in place. I ended up having to pin it in place eventually because it kept falling off. And then attaching his crown piece. His crown's in 2 pieces. Pretty straightforward. The reins for the Nazgûl, which at this point I realised were the wrong reins for this model, because the Witch King's is armoured. They're shorter reins because his head's reared up rather than down on the ground. Here I'm assembling the main body of the Nazgûl. It comes in 3 pieces, 2 sides and the top piece. At this point it recommends in the instructions that you glue in the flying stand. I didn't do this because the kit I had wasn't supplied with one, so I improvised and used an old paintbrush to make the stick, but I didn't glue it in place so I could take the Nazgûl on and off as needed. So then just making sure it's all nicely filled. No gap issues with this kit, well, not many anyway. There was very little putty work required. So now I'm clipping off, I think this is the legs to the Nazgûl and the claw pieces. The claws and the legs are 2 separate. So again, cleaning up the gate marks. This is cleaning up the legs again, or is it the tail? Oh, this is tail, sorry, not the legs. Clearing up the gate marks on the tail, and mould lines. Sorry, this is a little bit out of shot at this point. Kind of trying to get used to my new camera rig. So if I go out of shot, I'm sorry. There's the wings for the Nazgûl. Much better than the old metal kit's wings, because they were essentially the same wings as what the Balrog had. 1 set of plastic wings for both kits. Really didn't fit the kit very well. I think the plastic version is much better and a much nicer pose as well. I prefer the flying form rather than it standing on its tail, which is a bit silly. So I'm taking all the mould lines and things off it, cleaning it up with some wet and dry again. I prefer to use wet and dry as opposed to filing. Okay, this is me bending out a paper clip to create the pins for the wings so I can paint them. Careful when you do this so you don't ping it off and hit yourself in the face. And taking a pin vise or pin drill, whatever you want to call it, cutting a small drill hole and then super gluing in the paper clip. I use CA medium for this. I would strongly recommend using a slightly thicker version of super glue for this sort of assembly, because you want it to be temporary so you can take it out. Okay, so these are my improvised cork cups that I use. They're essentially all medicine bottle lids. Okay, thank you very much. And next piece you'll see in a minute will be the priming of said fell beast. Okay, now to the priming of this mini. I'll be using Vallejo Surface Primer. It's polyurethane based, and my cheap Chinese airbrush. I tend to use this airbrush for this application because I don't see the point in getting out my really expensive eye waters just for basically priming. There is no need for it really. Just get it loaded up, spray it on, and you're away. Like I say, I prefer the polyurethane spray-on primer as opposed to the rattle can kind. You get a lot more for your money as well. This bottle is about £5 and it lasts a heck of a lot longer. So as you can see, this cup on my airbrush is only 10 cc's, so it doesn't take long at all to get really good coverage. Okay, so I've got a foam block on the side that I stuck him in. Okay, now I'm using a cocktail stick to hold the base down onto my paper so it doesn't blow around while I'm trying to airbrush it. My airbrush PSI is about 15 for this, and I'm using a 0.5mm nozzle. And now I'm doing the wings. I also ethereal primed the wings, but I lost that footage. For some bizarre reason it didn't. I lost it somewhere. But if you want to know how to ethereal prime, there is actually an extra video on my YouTube channel that you can go and have a look at how to ethereal prime. This stuff does have a 24-hour drying period though, so that's the only disadvantage of this primer. But what I tend to do is I tend to spray it on, leave it about half an hour, hit it with a hairdryer, leave it about an hour or so, and then spray on the ethereal priming if I wanted to do that sort of thing. If not, just leave it overnight. I tend to put my undercoats on all in one go, all the models I'm doing, and then I've got them all ready for the next day. So thank you very much for watching. Next up will be the painting of said miniature, so thank you very much, and don't forget to comment, rate and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Cheers.